Hey everyone, it's UnsungNPC back here with another class video for you. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Kineticist. The Kineticist is a really interesting class in that you do a lot of elemental things, but none of it uses magic. It's all elemental, just being connected to the elemental planes themselves, which is very interesting, but very tricky to use. The difficulty of this being 5 is fairly accurate because even though they pretty much do one thing, it is still hard to find the perfect combination, what abilities to take, what types of blasts are going to be useful. It's a very tricky class, but once you get the hang of it, it's really straightforward. So, the Kineticist, they have average BAB, so 3-4, okay? They have high fortitude, high reflex, and low will. And they have a decent amount of hit points at start. And then they get mobility, persuasion, stealth, use magic device, perception, and then a class skill based on their elemental focus, which we'll get into. So, basically, the Kineticist controls, they have like this ability that they get called burn, and what their burn is something that's based on their like innate ability to use their kinetic blasts. It's controlled through their constitution plus having a little bit as being a Kineticist, and that will total into your burn count. So it's 3 plus your con modifier. That's how much burn you can take. Okay? You can, when you take burn, you start taking non-lethal damage to your character. 1 point per character level. It can't be healed other than resting, which removes all burn, all non-lethal damage. Okay? You can only accept 1 point of burn per round, and then at 6th level you can accept up to 2 points per round, and then an additional 1 point every 3 levels thereafter, eventually being able to accept a lot more burn. But still, 3 plus your con modifier is as much burn as you can take, though you can be forced to take more due to circumstances or abilities or certain things. But it's not good. Like, it's good because burn allows you to do things that you normally wouldn't be able to do with your blasts. But at the same time, you don't want to just take all the burn you can, because you are taking that non-lethal damage, which won't kill you, but will still kill you. You get what I'm meaning? Proficient with simple weapons and light armor. They are not heavy hitters, they are not frontliners, they are ranged backline people that can shoot very far based on the infusion they have, and that is their job. So light armor, heavier armor is not a priority, and having weapons isn't a priority because your kinetic blast is your weapon. There is, in fact, weapon focus, weapon specialization, and critical focus, all of that stuff for kinetic blasts. So don't feel like you can't take those feats to make your blast better, because you definitely can. Now the kinetic blast. The kinetic blast is your main attack, okay? And it can change based on the different elements that you have, which I think is part of like the fun of this class. I really enjoy the Kineticist because you start out with an element, but then you get more and you can mix and match to make cool different things. It gets really Avatar: The Last Airbender about it. It's fantastic time. So, physical blasts do damage equal to 1d6 plus 1 plus your constitution modifier, and it increases by 1d6 plus 1 for every 2 levels. And it ignores spell resistance. Doesn't impact spell resistance. It goes against normal AC. Your regular armored AC. That's the attack it goes against. Energy blasts are ranged touch attacks, so against touch AC, which can be more effective, but they only do 1d6 plus half the constitution modifier and then increases by 1d6. So while they have less defenses to go through, they do less damage. You only get half your con, and you only get 1d6, not 1d6 plus 1. So physical blasts will do more damage, but energy blasts are easier to make hit, right? Composite blasts combine elements to form a new blast. This could be something that is a physical composite blast or an energy composite blast, where the 1d6s turn to 2d6s and everything else pretty much stays the same. And we'll get into what composite blasts are here in a sec. But as you can see down here, I love that they separated this, because in Kingmaker, this was part of the main class level up, but now they've separated it on its own, so you can see the kinetic blast leveling up as you go, which I think is a really nice touch on the UI there. Next, you've got infusions. Infusions, as you can see, you take them every few levels, right? And infusions is basically a different way to manifest your blast. So you start out with a normal blast, but there's different types of infusions you can do to make the blast more unique or do something different. The DC for these infusions is going to depend on which of the two types of infusions it is. There's substance infusions and form infusions. Substance infusions add an effect to your blast, while the form infusion changes the form of the blast itself. Now, if it's changing the form, a form infusion, the DC is going to be using your dexterity modifier. If you're doing a substance infusion, it's going to be using your constitution modifier. And each infusion will tell you what save it goes with. The other thing to note is that infusions can only be used by certain blasts. There are some that work for all blasts, but there are definitely some that only work for certain blasts. So we're going to take a look at these possible infusions, and then we are going to take a look at the different elemental focus types and kind of compare what options we have, okay? So, I'll go through these. I'll talk about which ones I've used, which ones are handy, which ones you should take first, okay? First, we have Torrent. Torrent, first of all, these are all form infusions. Every single one of these is a form infusion. It is changing the form of the infusion. Most of your substance infusions will come from you being a certain element, and we'll take a look at what those are in a sec. Now, Torrent can be used by air, fire, or water, not earth, okay? Because it's a torrent. You wouldn't shoot a torrent of rocks. You would shoot a torrent of air, a torrent of fire, a torrent of water. It makes sense, okay? Those are the elements that it focuses from, and then it uses it. They have to use a reflex save to defend against it. Now, what the torrent does is it's a torrent of energy that buffets or burns all foes in a 30-foot line, dealing half your normal damage of blast damage. Or if it's an energy blast, it does full damage still. So this one's great for energy blasts. And the associated blasts, you can take a look there yourself: air, blizzard, blue flame, charged water, fire, lightning, magma, mud, plasma, sandstorm, steam, thunderstorm, water. There's a lot of different types, as I've said. Just off the bat, I know blue flame, charged water, fire, lightning, those things are all energy blasts, and they will do the full amount of damage, but the physical ones will deal half. Okay? The benefit is that you'll hit all enemies in a line. That's why it's only doing partial damage for physical. It's hitting all enemies in a line, but you are doing less damage overall. You're just spreading it out more, okay? Next, we have Cloud. Cloud can be only used by blizzard, sandstorm, steam, or thunderstorm, which makes sense. Those are the only cloud types that really exist here. It's a cloud, it's a 20-foot radius, and it can be anywhere within 50 feet of you. If they enter the cloud, they take half the normal damage from blast as do creatures that end their turn in the cloud, and it lasts for a number of rounds equal to your con modifier. While form infusions use dexterity to calculate your DC, the constitution modifier is going to be key for determining how many rounds things take, how many points things take, how much damage things take. That's going to be all constitution modifier for the base Kineticist. Cyclone. Cyclone is for air, blizzard, sandstorm, thunderstorm. Again, an air type thing, okay? And it will center within a 20-foot radius burst and affect everybody on a saving throw that is dexterity based, a reflex saving throw, and it does the normal amount of damage. It does half the blast normal damage. Most of these will do half. Deadly Earth. This is for earth only. Earth, magma, metal, mud. You infuse the ground, and the ground roils and buckles. Anytime a creature enters the area, it takes half the damage from your blast, as do creatures that end the turn in the area. Counts as difficult terrain, so it's kind of like Cloud, but on the ground instead of air all around you. Okay? Detonation is a fire infusion. It's an exploding flame cyclone, which is always fun to watch. Eruption is also fire, but can also be used with steam. And it's just like erupts fire from the ground. Okay, so it deals normal damage to each target for energy infusions, and then physical blasts deal half the amount of damage. So if you're using blue flame, fire, they're gonna do full. If you're using magma, and I think steam is also physical, then they're gonna be doing half. Okay. Extended range. This is the one to take. This is the first infusion you should take if you are planning on being for sure a ranged kineticist, which you should if you're not Kinetic Knight. This increases your range of your blast to 50 feet instead of the normal, I think, 30 feet. And it can work on any infusion, any blast. And it only has 1 point of burn, so it's very, very easy to use. Extended range should be the first one you take. Fan of Flames is for fire or blue flame. It basically acts like Burning Hands. Like you're basically using the Burning Hand spell. That's what Fan of Flames is. Fragmentation. Fragmentation requires extended range as a prereq and can be used by earth, ice, or metal, which are the solid ones that break apart, right? Those are all physical blasts. You throw a sphere of solid matter that shatters. Attempt a ranged attack roll against a target within 50 feet. If you hit, the target takes the damage with no saving throw. All other creatures within a 20-foot burst, which is a big burst, take half the normal damage and can attempt a reflex save to reduce that damage by half again. So you're going to be able to do like kind of a mini little AoE bomb with this one, but it requires extended range. Let's check real quick on any other prereqs. No prereqs. Cloud requires extended range. No prereqs for Cyclone. Deadly Earth requires extended range. Detonation doesn't have prereqs. Eruption requires extended range. So more proof that extended range is the way to go. Next we have Kinetic Blade. This is really the Kinetic Knight archetype's main infusion. I don't recommend taking this if you are a regular Kineticist. So I'm not even going to mention it here. I'm just going to wait to talk about it when we get to the Kinetic Knight. But I wouldn't recommend taking this as a regular Kineticist. I would stay in the ranged. Next we have Spindle, which can also be used by any blast, which is really cool. You throw a long, roughly 5 foot by 10 foot spindle of elemental matter or energy up to 30 feet away. No prereqs for this one. It damages all creatures within any 2 adjacent 5 foot squares unless they succeed a reflex save. Energy does normal damage, physical does half. Okay. Spray. Spray is another type of like burning hands thing, but it's water. It's charged water and water. It does half your normal damage and it has no prereqs. It's just a little water cone. And then we have Wall, which can be used by any blast. You just create a wall of your element. Okay, any creature that crosses the wall takes half the damage or full from an energy blast. And the wall lasts a number of rounds equal to your con modifier. So, lots of cool infusions. I really like extended range I think if you're fire, Fan of Flames is great. I think if you're water, Spray is great. I think if you're earth, Deadly Earth, or if you're air or water, taking Cloud or Cyclone for air. Taking the ones that are element specific is always a good call because there's going to be a lot of synergy there. On top of that though, Wall is a super fun one because it's just everyone who goes through takes damage. Like, and if you do energy blasts, then they're going to take full damage from that. So that's, you know, that's a good time. I like that one a lot. But yeah, extended range is great. If you're a physical blaster, I recommend Fragmentation. If you're an energy blaster, I recommend Torrent. It's a good one. Okay. So next, let's take a look at elemental focus stuff. Let's take a look at your elemental choices and what they offer you, right? So air. Air gives you some certain abilities. You get Air Blast, which is a choice. You can either, with air, you can either start with air or electricity. Air is physical, electricity is the energy version. You also gain nature as a class skill. You gain enveloping winds as your defensive ability at level 2. So all ranged attacks made with physical weapons suffer basically like you have blur. The mischance increases by 5% for every 5 levels you have. This doesn't have any effect on ray attacks, okay? Physical attacks only. By accepting 1 point of burn, you can also increase this by 5%. You can't go beyond 75%. And then you can take bonus feats, which can be from deflect arrows, lightning reflexes, improve lightning reflexes, dodge, combat ability. So this is kind of the mobile mood here. Okay. Next you have Earth. Earth only comes in the form of Earth Blast at the beginning. It does not have 2 options. It only has Earth, which is physical. Earth class skill is Athletics and Knowledge World. You get Flesh to Stone, so you gain DR1 Adamantine, which you can increase and also increases as you gain level. And then you can get Tremor Sense, which gives you the ability of having blind sight for 30 feet, which is cool. Not necessarily a need, but cool. And then you can have Great Fortitude, Improved Great Fortitude, Endurance, Trip, and Greater Trip. Alright. Fire. Fire is energy only blast. Okay, there's no physical variant for fire yet. Fire Blast is energy. You get Lore Nature, Searing Flesh. If anyone hits you with a natural attack or unarmed strike, of which there are a lot in this game, then they take fire damage equal to 1 point per 4 levels. If a creature grapples, they take double this amount of damage. You can increase it by accepting burn. So it's a nifty ability, and if you're gonna do Fire Blast, you're gonna take Ascendant Element Fire anyway as a mythic ability. So the demons will be able to take this damage, which is really nice. Earth is straight up physical damage. It doesn't have a typing. It's not acid. So this one's gonna do damage against demons. All the physical ones just do bludgeoning. They don't do anything else. Electricity, you would have to do Ascendant Element Electricity. For water, you would need to do Ascendant Element Cold. For ice, I think. The 2 options are Cold Blast or Water Blast. Okay? Water is physical, and cold is energy. You gain Lore Nature and Athletics, and you gain Shroud of Water. So you can either use it as a shield, which grants you a +4 armor bonus to AC, or a +2 bonus to AC that you can change the type of bonus. Okay, so it's either going to act as armor, as in your actual armor, or it's going to act as a shield bonus. So those are the 2 different types it can be, and you can decide which of those 2 that you want it to be based on what armor or shield you're using. And then bonus feats for water: Bull Rush, Greater Bull Rush, Improved by Blind Fight, and Greater Blind Fight. And then I skipped this on accident, but fire is Iron Will, Improved Iron Will, Persuasive, Dazzling Display, and Dreadful Carnage. Go. That's what that is. Now, if you get to pick an infusion, you'll get to see here, we've got some different infusions, that you can do for fire specifically. We have Burning Infusion, which is all fire, blue flame, magma, plasma. Okay, you burn your foes. It penetrates spell resistance. It catch on fire, regardless of whether it takes damage or not. And then a foe that catches fire takes 1d6 points of fire damage each round until the fire is extinguished. And then there's Dazzling. So if your blast hits a foe and penetrates spell resistance, if it has any, then they get to succeed a will save or be dazzled for 1 whole minute. Okay? Whether or not it takes any damage from the actual blast. So that's a pretty cool, nifty thing like that as well. Next we have Blade Whirlwind, which is the improved version of Kinetic Blade, so we're not going to mention it right now. Bowling Infusion is one of my favorite. You have to have earth, magma, metal, or mud. I'm a big fan of earth and mud myself. But you get to do a trip combat maneuver against each target damaged by the blast, and using your con modifier instead of strength to determine combat maneuver bonus, which should be high since you are a kineticist. And what's cool about this is that if you use a blast that affects everybody, like Deadly Earth, then you can also do the Bowling Infusion on top of that, and when they get hit by Deadly Earth or walk over it, then they will also all be tripped, which is a cool AoE prone, because you can use multiple infusions. You can enact multiple infusions, as many as you want, as long as you take the burn for doing it. There's also Chilling Infusion, which of course is Blizzard, Cold, Ice only. So they will, whenever a blast deals cold damage to a foe, that foe gets staggered. It's just a staggering. It's level 10, but it's not that big of an infusion. It's just a nice one to have. You're just constantly staggering people, which I think is fun. We've got Entangling, which is Blizzard, Cold, Earth, Ice, Magma, Metal, Mud, Sandstorm, so Earth and Water types only. And whenever they deal damage to a foe, they become entangled for a minute. So again, using something like Cloud with your water ones, or Deadly Earth with your earth ones, and entangling everyone, like big AoE effects here. Big AoE effects here, which is really, really fun to mess around with. Flash Fire is all the fire ones. It blinds. If it hits and penetrates a spell resistance, that has to succeed at a will save or be blinded for 1 round, regardless if it took damage from the blast. This one's fine. It's only blindness for 1 round, so it would kind of require you to constantly use it to really be effective. So I'm not a big fan of this one, but that's up to you. We've also got Foxfire, which is blue flame and fire, so the energy ones for fire. It leaves behind flickering flames that reveal the target's location as per Fairy Fire. So it acts as the Fairy Fire spell. We have Grappling, which is also one of my favorite ones. If they are affected by Cloud or Deadly Earth or Wall, which are all 3 great ones that I love. I love big AoE. Turning Kineticist into an AoE attacker is a game changer, because single target damage can be huge, but being able to take on these swarms of demons all at once, it is glorious. Okay, they have to succeed a reflex save. If they fail, they become grappled. They can break free, but they're still grappled if they don't. So that's really cool. So it's like a grappling cloud. It's just, that's crazy. We've also got Magnetic. Magnetic is an amazing infusion that is used by charged water, electric, metal, plasma, or thunderstorm. And what it does is, if you use it on someone and it deals damage, attacks made with metal weapons, including metal kinetic blasts. So I always pair metal with this one because it uses your blast as well. But any of your allies' metal weapons receive a +4 to attack them. And the foe takes a -4 on reflex saving throws to avoid metallic objects as well. This one's also great on an AoE, because imagine affecting all of your foes with a magnetic infusion, and then everyone just gets +4 to their attack bonuses against them. That's a whole +4 is a huge bonus to attacks. And it just says +4 bonus. It doesn't say what kind of bonus, so it's gonna stack with whatever. It's just a +4 because the weapons are being magnetically stuck to them. Oh, it's so cool. I love that one. You got Pure Flame. So Infuse Blast ignores spell resistance. So if you have Blue Flame and you're focusing on Blue Flame build, this one's great just because you can just start ignoring spell resistance, which a lot of demons have on your different blasts and different infusions, which comes in handy a lot, but it takes a lot of burn, so you need to be careful with it. It's a good one for boss fights though. We have Rare Metal. Control the properties of metal, allowing your metal blast to bypass damage reduction as if it were adamantine, cold iron, or silver, your choice. So you bypass damage reduction for those things, which is super, super cool. It's very niche though. You have to use it on specific enemies, but it's nice to just have in your back pocket. That's why I think metal is one of the strongest infusions in the game, or one of the strongest blasts, because these infusions that work for it are just like fragmentation's great, magnetic is great, rare metal is great. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. Synaptic. Electric, Charged Water, and Thunderstorm. So this one's all electricity type stuff. You cause enemies to become staggered for a round. So anyone that it hits, they become staggered if they fail the will save. Not that big. Unraveling Infusion. This one is for Blue Flame and Fire. So it melts away magical effects. So what this does is it acts as a targeted dispel magic. So, penetrate spell resistance, and then you attempt a caster level check as if using targeted dispel to take down their magical effects. This one's also big because in this game there's a lot of magical demons that are gonna have so many magical effects and defenses on them. I spent a lot of my game dispelling magical effects from boss demons. It was crazy. So being able to do that while also dealing damage is pretty freaking sweet. So it's really cool. It's really cool. Very, very nice. So I feel like in this game, Metal and Blue Flame are two of the strongest elements to mess with, which are Earth and Fire based. So those are very, very, very powerful. Very powerful blasts. And to achieve those blasts, the thing that you have to do is, so in your class, you get something called Expanded Element. So Expanded Element, you can either add another element to get combo composite blasts, or you expand on your own element to gain the ability to use further versions of your blast. So you start out with Earth when you have Earth, right? If you choose Earth again for Expanded, then you can get Metal. Okay, and if you choose Fire and then Fire again, you'll get Blue Flame. All right, Fire and Electricity creates Plasma, and then the other Fire one, let me just check it out here. Let's go through these. The other Fire one is, where is it? Magma is Fire and Earth. Steam is Fire and Air. Wait. Steam might be Fire and Water. I actually think Steam is Fire and Water. Okay. Fire and Air doesn't, yeah. Alright. Sandstorm is Earth and Air. Then you have Magma, Metal. Charged Water is Water and Electricity. Ice is furthering on water and having water and cold together. Blizzard, I believe, is water and cold and air. What else are we missing? Let's see. Thunderstorm is doing electricity and air and then doing those again. So continuing on the same path. Let's see. Mud is earth and water. Duh. I think that's all of them. It's a lot to process, but once you get into it, you can find really fun combinations and abilities to do. It's a good time. It's a good time, guys. I'm telling you, it really is. So, what else can this class do? You'll get another expanded element at 15th level. At this point, you're not going to choose your own element again if you already have. Personally, I choose 7th level to choose another element, so I have 2. And then at 15th level, I'd pick one of those 2 elements to expand upon. So that's what I do. That's my way of doing things. So then you played around with both of them and you can figure out which one you'd want to further go to. So I always like to combo. And you've got composite specialization, which is at 16th level when you start using composite blasts, sandstorm, blizzard, thunderstorm, mud, things that combine, okay, then the burn cost is going to be reduced by 1, which is nice. The other thing you're going to have is meta magic, okay? So metakinesis. Their meta magic is how they act, like empowered spell, maximize spell, and then quicken spell, but they are metakinesis. So you'll get empowered, which increases your damage by half. You'll get maximize, which maximizes their damage rolls, your dice, to max. And then you'll get quicken, where you'll be able to use your blast quicker, which is honestly my favorite one. And it's 1 point of burn for empower, 2 points for maximize, 3 points for quicken. And yes, if you want, you can spend 6 points of burn and use all 3. All right. And then at Metakinetic Master, you choose one of those 3 and reduce the burn cost of that by 1. I always choose Quicken spell for this one because I feel like Quicken on your blast is huge, and I'm going to explain why. But it's blasts are a standard action, and then you have the ability to basically gather power. So you can gather power as a move action, as a standard action, or a swift action. It might be swift move full round, or it's move standard full round. And it basically allows you to gather power so you don't have to take as much burn from doing abilities and infusions. So I take Quicken because you'll be able to quicken that, and not for full round, you won't have to actually wait a full round. You'll be able to quicken it, which is really, really handy. Supercharge, when you use Gather Power as a move action, you can reduce the total burn cost of a single wild talent by 2 points instead of 1. Because I think the smaller one's 1, then 2, then 3 points of burn. So you'll be able, and then when using, like it says, when using Gather Power as a full round, you can reduce the burn cost of a single talent by 3 instead of 2. It might be move, full round, and then beyond that, actually. It might go in that order. I wish they had it here so you could see. The other thing you get is wild talents. Wild talents, you can get the different adaptations, aerial, cold, heat, and you'll get energy resistance to those equal to your current amount of burn. Elemental Whispers gives you a familiar. Enduring Earth, when using Earth Blasts, Earth's wild talents, or composite blasts that include Earth, you double the duration if it's longer than 1 round. Expanded Defense allows you to choose the defensibility of the expanded element, because you only get the core abilities of your original elemental focus. And then this allows you to take the defensibility of your additional element if you chose another one. Fire's Fury, you add your elemental overflow bonus to damage dealt, which is, elemental overflow is what you have when you start getting your burn and whatnot. And then Skilled Kineticist allows you to add half your kinetic level on skill checks for the skill that your element brings into your class list. Okay? And again, all your bonus feats. And then you can take skill focus if you want on any skill. And that's your base Kineticist. It's a lot. It's a lot. We've already gone through like 30 minutes of this. This is a lot of stuff, okay? Let's get into the archetypes. First, we have Blood Kineticist. Blood Kineticist is going to be water, but using blood, okay? So you get rack instead of an infusion choice. You get rack. So you rack a target within 30 feet, harming the target by manipulating their blood. Right? You're a bloodbender. Okay? They take half the normal damage of the Blood Kinetics blast, and it can attempt a fortitude save to reduce that damage to 1/4 instead of just half. But the damage is untyped and ignores damage reduction. It costs 0 points of burn to do this. The only downside to this is that demons have really high fortitude, so I don't know how effective rack is really going to be. Then you get bleeding. So on a failed fortitude save, they take 1 point of bleed damage for every die of the blast damage. So at this point, when you get it, you're at 3, and eventually you're at 10. So you get like bleed 10 per round, which is crazy. Costs 2 points of burn to use. Can be used with water and blood blasts. Again, fortitude save, risky move. Blood blast. The first time a blood kineticist selects water with expanded element, she doesn't gain the cold simple blast or the ice composite blast. Instead, she gains the blood composite blast, which costs 2 points of burn. A blood blast is a physical blast that deals bludgeoning damage. Okay? So there you go. You get water first, and then you get blood. And then gut wrenching. On a failed fortitude save, they are sickened for 1 minute. Costs 3 points of burn. It's a very nice ability, but again, fortitude saves, they're not strong. Vampiric Infusion. The Blood Kineticist can activate the Kinetic Healer utility wild talent without paying the burn cost. This is a 5th level substance, costs 3 points of burn. So Kinetic Healer is a water element specific wild talent that will allow you to heal yourself or heal others at the sacrifice of burn, but this allows you to do it without paying the burn cost. And then you've got Blood Mastery. You're immune to bleed, poisons, disease, and the sickened and nauseated conditions because you've mastered control over your own blood. That's disgusting. So yeah, you can only take water. Okay? And you only take water blast. And then, yeah. There's not really a way for me to show you element-specific wild talents, but you guys will get into it, and you'll see some of them in these archetypes as well. But you guys will be able to get in there and find out which different elements do different things. Dark Elementalist. Dark Elementalist changes very, very little. Okay? First of all, it makes it to where you use intelligence instead of constitution. So this is an intelligence-based build rather than con. So Kineticist is high fort, high reflex, low will. Blood is the same. Dark Elementalist is low fortitude, low reflex, and high will. Okay, this is an intelligent, more castery feel to it. Okay, and then soul power. So you can gather soul power. So you can use the soul of others to protect yourself from the dangers of burn. You can't choose to accept burn if doing so would raise your total number of points above burn above 3. So basically, you can use your soul power a number of times equal to your intelligence modifier as a full round action, gather up the souls of the dead, and then when you do, you then can use abilities without taking burn. It reduces your current burn total by 1 point. So it just decreases your burn that you already have. You gain attack and damage bonuses from elemental overflow based on how many times you have successfully used soul power to rack souls. So, for instance, 9th level Dark Elements who has used soul power 3 or more times during the course of the day would add a +3 bonus on attack rolls and a +6 bonus on damage rolls. Nice. Cool. Very strong. But yeah, you can't do this, you know, you can do this a number of times, but you can't raise your total number of points of burn above 3, essentially. The rest of this is pretty much the same. It just changed, you become an intelligence-based archetype here. Elemental Engine. Elemental Engine uses the overflowing elemental power. So you get burnout. So whenever you chose an element, whenever you accept burn, you surge with energy. Okay? So you receive a bonus on your attack rolls with Kinetic Blast equal to a total number of points of burn you currently have, to a maximum of +1 for every 3 levels you possess. So it'll go up. You also receive a bonus to damage rolls equal to double the bonus of attack rolls. Furthermore, while being at maximum burn, doubles those bonuses, and when using Gather Power, you reduce the burn cost by an additional 1 point. So we're getting rid of Supercharge. You kind of get Supercharged a little bit early, at a certain sense, but it's only when you're at maximum burn. So this archetype capitalizes on burning. You want to burn that energy and burn it good and get to the top of the burn. That way you get more powers. And you have elemental burnout. You gain additional benefits while at maximum burn depending on what the element you chose at first level. If you chose air, you get +2 saving throw bonus to spells with the electricity descriptor and immunity to ground-based spells and abilities. If it's earth, +2 saving throws against spells with acid, and then +4 to CMD against trip, bull rush, and pull combat maneuvers. If you're fire, +2 against fire, and then +20 enhancement bonus to your speed, which is crazy. And if it's water, +2 against cold, and then any enemy striking you in melee combat with a non-reach melee weapon must make a fortitude save or become slowed. So those are all, again, at maximum burn is when you get access to those abilities. And you have greater elemental burnout. Holy cow, additional effects. Additional +2 for all of their elements. For air, you get freedom of movement effect. For earth, you gain immunity to trip, bull rush, and pull. For fire, you are under the haste effect, which I think Pondor will like immensely. Very powerful. And then if water, any enemy in a 10-foot radius must succeed a fortitude or become slow for 1 round. So these all capitalize on burn and maximizing your burn potential, your burnout. That's the point of this. And all you're giving up for it is Supercharge, which I think is really cool. Like, to me, this might be Kineticist Plus, because you're giving up this Supercharge ability to be able to get all of these burn bonuses, and they're optional. It's like if you take burn or maximize burn, you get these bonuses. Otherwise, you're just another basic Kineticist. So this is definitely Kineticist Plus here. I'm digging it. Kinetic Knight. Okay. This is the one where the game changes. This is a armored weapon using Kineticist melee combatant. Okay. Elemental Blade. You gain Kinetic Blade form infusion. It costs 0 points of burn instead of the normal 1. And you can't use your blast at all. You have to use Kinetic Blade to use your Kinetic Blast. And you can you can do an infusion that lists Kinetic Blade as a prereq, which I think is Blade Whirlwind. Or Whirlwind Blade or whatever. So you've got Kinetic Blade. It can be a non-reach, light, or one-handed weapon made of pure elemental energy, whatever you have. It doesn't The shape of the weapon doesn't affect damage dice, or critical threat, or critical multiplier, nor does it grant any weapon special features. Your blast still acts like your blast, okay? You can use this form once as part of an attack action, a charge action, or a full attack action in order to make melee attacks with your blade. So you can start it up and then do your thing, okay? Doesn't provoke attacks or opportunity, which we like to see. This weapon deals the same damage type as your blast, interacts with armor and spell resistance as normal for a blast of its type, and doesn't add the damage bonus from elemental overflow. Okay? And then you can get Blade Whirlwind. Create a blade and swing it in an arc around you, making an attack against all foes within reach of your blade. And then it vanishes afterward. So it's making an attack against everyone. So this is kind of like stand in the thick of it type of class here. You get Kinetic Warrior. You use your Constitution score in place of Intelligence when qualifying for combat feats. And you can also get Combat Expertise, or, you know, Greater Dirty Trick, Disarm, Greater Trip, right? And then you've got Elemental Bastion. You become proficient with medium and heavy armor and shields. They are meant to be armored characters. Okay, and then you gain the elemental defense ability at 4th level rather than 2nd, because you're going to be focusing on armor rather than your elemental defense. And then you get Knight's Resolve at 3rd level. So you can use this ability once per day plus 1 additional time per day for every 2 levels you have beyond 3rd. So, Determined. As a standard action, the Kinetic Knight can spend 1 use of his Resolve to remove the fatigued, shaken, or sickened condition. I know Pondor's really gonna like that one. If you're at least 11th level, you can also remove exhausted, frightened, nauseated, staggered, which is huge. This is kind of like Ruptured Restraint's mythic ability, but you could use that as well and then have a bunch of extra uses. Resolute, if you're required to make a Fortitude or Will save, you can spend a use of your Resolve as an immediate action to roll twice and take the better result. Okay? This replaces the infusion you gained at 3rd level and replaces Supercharge. So no Supercharge here, but you don't benefit from Elemental Overflow anyway as a Kinetic Knight. Okay? And you gain Resolve points to use these, which again, you use these once per day, then 1 additional time every 2 levels. And then Elemental Focus. So yeah, you don't get all of these other infusion choices, but you do still have the ability to choose any element you want. And then you can expand on it and whatnot. You're also getting rid of these meta abilities, and then you're getting rid of 3 infusions and Supercharge. This is a very niche, but this is the melee Kineticist. If you want to be the armor sword and board Kineticist and run in there with your elemental blade, this is the one for you. I think it's very niche. I don't think it's useless. I think you can get a lot of use out of this. You just have to use it correctly. But just know that ranged attacks are out of the question. Next we have Overwhelming Soul. Overwhelming Soul uses mental prowess. So, you are strong enough to protect your body from the stress of channeling the elements. However, in exchange, you can't push your limits quite as far. You can't choose to accept burn, but you can use wild talents with a burn cost if you can reduce that cost to 0 with abilities such as Gather Power and Infusion Specialization. At 6th level, once per day, you can reduce the total burn cost of any wild talent by 1. And then you'll get this more times as you go. And then you get Mind Over Matter. So this is a charisma-based Kineticist, which I think could be very popular for people who'd want to play that persuasion, diplomacy, intimidation main character. Having it be charisma instead of constitution allows you to kind of maximize on being the leader character in the story if you're into that thing, or if you want to succeed at persuasion checks. And yeah, so it uses charisma. And you get Overwhelming Power. Overwhelming Soul gains +1 bonus on attack rolls and damage rolls with Kinetic Blasts. Doesn't apply to Kinetic Blade, Kinetic Whip, or other infusions that don't apply damage from Elemental Overflow. And then this increases. So you'll just have a flat +6 bonus to attack rolls and damage rolls, regardless of whether you have Overflow or not, because you can't use Overflow the same way. Okay? Because you don't accept burn. And you have Mental Prowess. Okay. Mental Prowess is, yeah. The 6, you can reduce a total burn. We already went over that one. Great. Yeah, so besides that, it's basically the same. But it's a charisma based. You can't accept a burn, but you can decrease the burn of abilities and then still use those abilities. But this one's a less creative, charisma focused, way more focusing on damage. This isn't about the AoE infusions or the grappling, entangling, tripping, anything like that. This is about damage potential. That's what the Overwhelming Soul is for. This is straight single target damage, take them out, get extended range, decrease the burn, you'll be totally fine, eventually getting that +6 to attack and damage rolls. It's going to be huge, very straightforward damage. Very straightforward damage. And then we have the Psychokineticist. The Psychokineticist uses Wisdom instead of Constitution, which is my fave. Wisdom is one of my favorite stats in this game, so whenever you take a -2 penalty on will saves, wisdom checks, and wisdom-based skill checks for each point of burn that you have, rather than taking non-lethal damage. So you don't take damage from burn anymore, but you take -2 to will saves, wisdom checks, and wisdom-based skill checks for each point of burn. That's a big hit. It's a big hit. And then you have +3 plus your wisdom modifier amount of burn that you can take. Otherwise, it works the same as any other burn. So instead of non-lethal damage, you just take that, and then it's wisdom, and everything else is the same. So this is if you want to be wisdom-based, and you, instead of taking the non-lethal damage, you want to take these penalties to your wisdom. I guess the upside is that you're going to have a higher wisdom because you're wisdom-focused, so it's going to kind of balance you out. But it's still a pretty big hit, especially when there's lots of demons that do mind-affecting spells. I feel like the Psychokineticist has to be the throwaway. Roll it up, chuck it in the garbage, because the demons will mess with your minds. They will get inside your head, and you will be fucked, okay? You will be screwed. I wouldn't take Psychokineticist. I think it's too risky to mess with at all, so I wouldn't do it. Kineticist is pretty solid, but with Elemental Engine as Kineticist Plus, I think this is what you should take if you want to be a regular Kineticist. Blood Kineticist is cool, but also all of their abilities are Fortitude based, so I think this one is kind of a throwaway as well. What it does is awesome, but also very hard to pull off. Dark Elementalist is Intelligence based. Feel free to take this one if it's your flavor. I believe they also require you to be evil. Yeah, if Dark Elementalist also requires you to be evil. That's something to keep in mind. Elemental Engine's Kineticist Plus. Kinetic Knight is your melee armored combat variant. Overwhelming Soul is pure damage Kineticist. No fucking around with infusions. Damage, damage, damage. And Psychokineticist, again, throw it away. This is the Kineticist. This is a lot. If going over everything is overwhelming or seems all over the place or anything like that, take a deep breath and put Kineticist to the side and worry about it later. There's plenty of other classes to try out if this one is just too much. I think this is probably the most extensive class in the game, and it's a lot. It was a lot when it was introduced in Kingmaker. It's still a lot now. So take a breather. It's okay. Anyway, I'm UnsungNPC. I thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like. Subscribe to the channel for more class videos coming your way, and other videos and streaming content that I do. Feel free to join the Discord. We chat about this game a lot. We chat about games in general, all kinds of RPGs and indie games that we all have interests in. It's a fun time. So join us and come chat with us and hang out. Other than that, I will catch you guys in the next one.